believe this type of thing. But this is the answer they give, and at some point maybe we'll be able to verify that type of thing with reincarnation, all the rest of it.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the craft that Billy has photographed. And I believe that these people are Pleiadians?
Yes, that's actually what they are called, formerly referred to as Pleiadians, because it was part of a deliberate approach on the part of the extraterrestrials and Billy to use this word Pleiadian because they come from the direction of the Pleiades star system, but in an altered space and time continuum, because the Pleiades that we see from Earth are not inhabitable. These are little, blue suns or something. And so I am not all that knowledgeable about altered time and space continuums. Suffice it to say that they use the term Pleiadian so that anybody that would start to claim contact or channeling with Pleiadians subsequent to Billy would be shown to be a fake, a hoaxer. There are no Pleiadians.
There are no Pleiadians.
Zip.
Well, have they explained to Billy why they're here?
Yes. And this is kind of, I've encapsulated the idea in terms of calling it the Meier contacts, the key to our future survival. And I mean it absolutely literally, our future survival. This isn't about space brothers coming to save us. It's not about ascension and fourth dimensions and other things like this, which they simply say are not realities. These are not real things. What's real is we are third-dimensional people. Yes, there's many dimensions. Yes, there's much to discover and learn, but we're going to do it here on this planet. They are here to try to assist us to prevent us from killing ourselves off, basically.
Right. So they're concerned with how we interact with one another and the planet, how we're treating the planet. How we treat
the planet, and especially the events that are unfolding now as we speak and have been for some time that pertain to the world and the wars. They've written about this, and some of the prophecies about this are literally ancient prophecies, and it's a huge focal point of the case.
Well, as we can see here, Michael, these photographs are very clear. Let's just take another look here. Look at this one above the car, the truck.
And that's a very interesting craft. It has the ability apparently to travel through time as well as space. Many, if not actually most of Meier's photos are taken with other objects nearby, in front of, behind, for reference. So that people who could discern this, as well as the people who did the analysis in the photographs, could determine that they were indeed large, real objects, and that they were not hoaxed model.
You could understand, Michael, that somebody would be very skeptical at seeing that picture.
Oh, sure.
That it's computer generated, perhaps? Or
yeah, the only problem is that when Meier took the photos between 75 and 79, there were no computers hanging around for people to play with and manipulate. There was no Photoshop.
Of course.
None of it existed. And Meier is living not in Hollywood. Meier is living in a remote Swiss village with no resources to fake things.
What does Billy say when people tend to be very skeptical about all of these pictures?
Well, of course, Billy always says people should be free to decide for themselves. This is not to be forced on people. That's why if these people are real, certainly they could land or show up anywhere, anytime. But we are supposed to do the work to determine for ourselves whether these are real. Now, of course, I should mention that a good number of the photographs were subjected to the most rigorous photo analysis, and I have a free report that I put on a website. People can just look at that stuff because it comes from a book, 1980 or 81, from the original investigative team. And recently, as a matter of fact, in 2001, February, I challenged the top international professional skeptics organization to duplicate only one of his photos and one of his films because they said it was an easily duplicated hoax.
Right.
Months went by after they'd accepted the challenge, and nothing was forthcoming. I told them at that point, instead of worrying about using cameras, you could go to computer, do anything you want. Well, it was well over 3 years. And after that period of time, they finally came out with 6 photos, that bore no resemblance to just visually. I mean, they looked like nice little things floating, but they weren't with trees in front. They didn't have the challenge. Nonetheless, I said, okay. They said, see, we've duplicated the effect. And I said, well, a science fiction movie can duplicate the effect, but aren't you aware that, we've got parameters here? Well, they didn't want to hear about it, and I was on a big radio show for 4 hours one night talking about their failure to duplicate. One of the guys called in, and the host of the show challenged him to have his photos analyzed as Meier's were, and he refused publicly.
Really?
At that point, the skeptical challenge to the Meier case bit the dust.
Who with the bullet actually analyzed these pictures?
Well, this is an interesting thing. The investigative team went into facilities. They had to sign confidentiality agreements. We know that there were organizations that lent them some help, including persons from JPL, NASA, Michael Mallon of the Mars mission looked at the photos, Robert Post, special effects expert named Wally Gentleman from the Canadian Film Board. The equipment that was used was itemized. It was enormously expensive at the time. They used the best, quality equipment that was available for this type of thing, but they couldn't, by virtue of agreement, let people know exactly all the details of who and what was being used for the examination. It's I guess a proprietary type of agreement, and I just today got another email on that from the lead investigator in the case. But the kind of equipment that was used is well laid out, and the parameters are enormously long. I don't blame the skeptics for not subjecting. They wouldn't have passed.
Right. Just go on to another picture or two, and then I'd like to show you some footage.
Sure.
Our viewers at home to see some footage when I can get this here. Oops. We have another one by a tree right here. Now, wasn't there a model UFO found on the property of Meier?
Sure. As a matter of fact, models were brought over, by the investigative team.
Right.
They were deliberately made. They spent several $100s on Hollywood, quality models, so that they could test and photograph them in the same locations that the Meier photos were taken in, and then submit them to computer analysis to see if indeed they could discern the difference. Meier tried to make a model and shot snapshots of it, and basically threw the pictures away in disgust because it was of such obvious and inferior quality.
Right.
But he was trying to figure out how, could I even make something that looks as good as the real thing? But this whole thing of they found models, well, yeah, they made models deliberately.
But the models were made after the contacts.
Oh, yeah, after the photos would have been taken.
Right.
Well, most of them, yeah.
Right. Didn't his ex-wife say that he was making up the whole story?
That was after a couple of interesting things. After she and 15 other people had passed lie detection tests that the case was real, after she had done a video interview to the effect of it, and also after she and he, were parting company as a married couple. I understand those things sometimes happen between people.
Of course.
That, things occur where suddenly there's a little animosity or bitterness or what have you. And see, this isn't a case about perfect beings. This is a case about human beings. And because of that, everything that could go wrong went wrong, including with the extraterrestrials, which I was just talking to Billy about last week. And we have to remember that these ideas of everything being perfect come from our conditioning, basically from religions and unreal type of thinking that this is not involved with.
Right. Can we have a look at the footage that we have of Billy's UFO, that we can show everyone?
Here you see one of Mr. Meier's 8mm movie segments of a UFO taken in 1978. Notice the two separate lights that momentarily flash on the cupola and the flanging of the ship. Mr. Meier and his wife recorded the sounds you are hearing in 1980 on a cassette machine outdoors with 15